Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, the articles, the research, whatever you send us, and we really dig down to pull out the most important insights just for you. Today, we're tackling something pretty crucial: boosting English vocabulary. And you've given us a really interesting source here. It's a research paper from the International Journal in Information Technology in Governance, Education, and Business from 2024.
Right.
And this paper, it looks at a specific educational game app called Scramword. So our mission really is to unpack how this app was made, how they studied it, and what it tells us about using games to learn English vocabulary better for students and teachers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, English skills are just so vital today, right? For global connection, jobs. But let's face it, learning vocabulary the old way, it can be tough. Keeping students engaged is always a big hurdle.
Which leads us right to the big question for this deep dive. Can a seemingly simple word game, okay, maybe built with modern tech, but still a game, can it really make a difference in how students pick up English words? All right, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So the paper kicks off by stating the obvious. Maybe English proficiency is essential, but then it sharpens the focus. The real challenge is finding learning methods that are, not just new, but actually work, effective methods.
And the proposed solution, the core idea they tested, was, well, an educational game application. And the specific app they zeroed in on for this study was Scramword.
Okay, Scramword. So what exactly is it, according to the paper? It sounds like an app where you get jumbled letters.
Yeah, just scrambled letters. And the player has to rearrange them to make actual words. The whole idea behind the design was to make that process feel, well, fun, engaging, not like a test.
Right, not like drilling flashcards.
Exactly. And they didn't just build it on a whim. They talk about grounding it in theory, combining digital learning ideas with, game technology principles. The goal was really to enrich learning, make it enjoyable, and boost motivation.
And what were some of the features they highlighted early on to achieve that?
Well, things like letting students learn at their own pace. That's huge. Plus, active interaction through different difficulty levels, different topics, and getting immediate feedback, knowing right away if you got it right or wrong.
Okay, immediate feedback. That seems critical.
It is. And if you look at the bigger picture they paint, like in their literature review section, all this digital learning stuff, apps, software, e-learning, it's becoming central. It makes learning more hands-on, practical, accessible, anytime, anywhere. Basically getting students ready for today's world. And they really stress that vocabulary. It's the bedrock, the foundation of communication.
Got it. So that's the why and the what. Let's shift to the how did they actually create this thing? The paper mentions a sense of urgency, driven by demand for digital tools, and also, interestingly, advances in AI and machine learning.
Yeah, that's an interesting layer, the AML part. The idea wasn't just to, sprinkle it in. According to the source, the plan was potentially to use it to analyze how well a player is doing, their abilities, and then offer personalized feedback.
Ah, so tailoring the experience.
Exactly. That's what could potentially lift it from just being a fun game to being a really powerful educational tool.
And besides the AI potential, what other design stuff did they focus on?
Things like real-time feedback, we mentioned that. Also, progress tracking, not just for the student to see how they're doing, but for teachers too. That's important. And the app adapting, changing the challenges based on the user's own pace and learning style. Personalization again.
Okay. And who was this for? Did they specify?
Yes, the target was secondary school students, specifically in Malang. And technically, they built it with the Unity 2D engine, programmed in C#, but a really big emphasis was on a user-friendly design.
And make it approachable.
Right, so even students who weren't super comfortable with technology could just pick it up and use it. And the goals went beyond just vocabulary. They aimed to also nurture things like critical thinking, problem solving, digital literacy, those broader skills everyone needs now.
It sounds like they followed a pretty structured process to build it too, not just coding away in a vacuum.
Oh yeah, definitely. They described a whole methodology, starting with needs identification, like actually talking to teachers and students, doing surveys, interviews to figure out what words were important, what features people wanted,
Right.
Then design and prototyping, sketching it out, making it intuitive, getting early reactions, then the actual development phase with Unity and C#. Then testing, lots of testing, unit tests, integration tests, and importantly, user acceptance testing with the actual teachers and students.
So real-world feedback.
Crucial. Then implementation in the school, evaluation and maintenance, and this is key, a loop of continuous feedback and iteration. They plan to keep refining it based on how it was used.
Okay, thorough process. So the setup, the build,
Yeah.
now for the results,
Yeah.
the payoff. Did it actually work? When students started using Scramword, what did the study find?
Well, the headline is, yes, they reported positive results. Their main goal was checking vocabulary improvement, right? So they used pre-tests and post-tests, standard approach. And the findings show that the students using Scramword had a definite increase in vocabulary mastery compared to a control group who didn't use it.
Okay, so test scores went up. That's tangible.
It is, but it wasn't just about scores. The paper also talks quite a bit about user acceptance and engagement. How did the students feel about it?
Right. Did they actually like using it?
Apparently, yes. Students reported finding it not just educational, but genuinely entertaining. And that's a big win because if the students are drawn to it, if they find it fun, that solves a huge part of the learning challenge right there. Motivation.
Yeah, if it doesn't feel like work.
Exactly. And the teachers noticed things, too. It wasn't just students having fun on their phones.
Oh, what did the teachers observe?
They noted that the students using the app seemed more active in English classes, more confident, which suggests the impact went beyond just knowing words. It affected their willingness to actually, participate,
Yeah.
use the language.
That's really interesting. More active and confident. How did the app help with that self-paced learning idea, outside the classroom?
The study pointed to a few things there. First, that user-friendly interface we talked about, that made it easy for students to just use it whenever without needing a teacher looking over their shoulder.
Makes sense.
Second, having those different difficulty levels and vocabulary categories they could choose, that put them in control. It gave them ownership of their learning, letting them tackle things at their own speed.
Right, catering to different levels in one class.
Precisely. And third, that instant feedback mechanism, getting immediate correction or praise. That let them learn from mistakes right there on the spot, independently. Student and teacher feedback also showed it was flexible. Kids were using it in free time, at home, even commuting. So it really did support learning anywhere, anytime.
Wow, okay. So it sounds like it genuinely became part of their learning ecosystem, not just a classroom tool. Did this translate into, more interest in English overall?
That's what the evidence suggests. They saw increased student engagement. A key indicator was students using the app outside of school hours. You don't do that unless you're genuinely interested, right?
Good point. Voluntary learning.
Yeah. Plus, direct feedback from students was positive. They said it was more enjoyable than the usual methods, made them feel more motivated. And teachers backed this up, noticing more class participation, more enthusiasm,
So better test scores, happier students.
and more active participation. Teachers reported students asking more questions, joining debates more, and actually using the new words they learned from the app in conversation. It wasn't just memorizing for a test. It was becoming active vocabulary.
That's the goal, really, using the language naturally.
Exactly.
So huge benefits for the students. What about the teachers? Did Scramword make their lives easier, or was it just another thing to manage?
The paper suggests it was genuinely supportive for teachers, too, in several ways. First, it was an extra resource, something engaging to supplement their regular materials.
Okay, another tool in the toolbox.
Right. It also gave them a more interactive way to introduce vocabulary, maybe livening things up,
Wow.
and that instant feedback feature for students. That saved teachers time. Less individual correcting, more time for, other teaching activities.
I can see how that would help.
Plus, the potential for reports and analysis from the app could help teachers track progress easily and maybe tweak their lesson plans. And because students were more engaged by the game itself, teachers didn't have to spend as much energy just trying to keep them motivated.
Lowering the motivation burden.
Yeah. And the game format itself could foster collaboration and communication, which teachers could then leverage in class activities.
Okay, so we've gone through the problem, the Scramword solution, how it was built, and the positive results for both students and teachers. Stepping back, what does this specific case study tell us about maybe the bigger picture in education?
Well, it definitely adds weight to the argument for game-based learning. The discussion in the paper really emphasizes how these interactive games don't just drill facts like vocabulary, but they also help build those crucial communicative skills. It seems technology, especially games, can really boost engagement and motivation, moving beyond traditional methods.
And they mentioned something about concealed repetition for retention. How does that work with Scramword?
Right, so instead of just seeing a word list over and over, scrambling and unscrambling letters forces you to interact with the word differently each time. It's repetition, yeah, but it's sort of hidden inside the challenge, inside the game. And that active engagement seems to make the memory stick better than just passively reviewing.
That makes sense. You're actively manipulating it.
Exactly, and this points to the broader role of technology. Using tech like this, especially games, can cater to different learning styles much more easily than a one-size-fits-all lecture. It makes learning more dynamic, interactive, less monotonous.
And you mentioned personalization earlier. That seems like a huge potential benefit of educational tech like this, adapting to individual student needs and speeds.
Absolutely. Tech allows for that kind of flexible adaptation and deep personalization in a way that's really hard for one teacher managing a whole classroom to do manually.
Which could also tie into inclusion, right? Offering different ways to learn for students who might struggle with traditional methods.
Definitely. Game-based apps can provide alternative routes to understanding, potentially creating a more supportive environment for learners with diverse needs.
And going back to the user feedback, the fact that students liked it and found it intuitive wasn't just a nice to have, it was key to its success.
Totally. Positive feedback signals the design worked, it met their needs. And the game aspect taps into intrinsic motivation. They play because it's engaging and relevant, not just because it's assigned. It feels less like schoolwork.
So thinking long term, how do tools like Scramword fit into the future of English education?
Well, the potential is that they help move beyond just teaching isolated words. They help students develop the ability to use language, the broader communication skills. Integrating interactive tech like this promotes deeper acquisition, helping students apply what they learn in real contexts, not just memorize lists. It's about functional language use.
Okay, so let's try to wrap up this deep dive on the Scramword study. What are the main takeaways? It seems this 2024 research shows a well-designed game app can significantly improve English vocabulary.
Yeah.
It boosted scores, sure,
Yeah.
but it also increased student engagement, their interest in the subject, helped them learn independently, and even provided real support for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It used tech concepts, including ideas around AI, to personalize and just make learning more effective and, frankly, more enjoyable.
That sums it up well. This case study is a really good example of how thoughtful educational technology, especially using game mechanics, can genuinely lead to better outcomes. It makes learning more engaging, adaptable, and just, well, more effective.
So, for you listening, how might these ideas resonate? Maybe think about your own learning. Could game-based tools help you learn something new? Or if you teach or train people, how could you maybe leverage these kinds of engaging digital approaches?
And here's something else to chew on, building on what we discussed. If these personalized, fun, game-based apps can make such a difference in something as fundamental as vocabulary, what other complex skills out there could they potentially help you master? And how does that continue to change who's responsible for learning and how it happens in our increasingly digital world?
Lots to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep exploring those topics that matter to you.